Hello, everyone. Here's your weather hazard briefing for Sunday, May 14th. We've had some pretty good winds out there, at least early on this morning, and these winds will continue at least the mid morning. That's when the strongest winds are expected. And then as we go through the rest of the morning into the afternoon, the winds become more out of the southeast, pretty much all across central and eastern Idaho, after being out of the east and northeast since pretty much yesterday afternoon. We do have showers and thunderstorms expected on a daily basis over the next several days. For today, there will be some pockets of locally heavier rainfall and some indications, some gusts over 35, maybe 40 miles per hour with some of these storms as well. But the big story is, even with this low shifting to the west and then eventually off to the northwest, that is going to bring some warmer temperatures back our direction. So we've got rain, we've got warm temperatures in some areas with these strong winds keeping temperatures up overnight. It's just keeping the snowmelt and runoff potential elevated through at least today for that today, and then obviously with the wind and warmer or the rain and warmer temperatures to come over the next several days. Satellite shows that low area of low pressure forming over Nevada and Utah, northern Nevada and Utah, shifting to the west, and like I mentioned, this will continue to lift off to the northwest across Washington and Oregon in the next 24 to 48 hours. That's going to pull all this moisture back up into here. So that's why we have showers and thunderstorms continuing in the forecast. So you can see that on the weather risk outlook. We continue to highlight where, at least over the higher elevations, where it's southeast highlands and up into the Wood River area, a little higher a threat for flooding potential. We still have it over portions of the eastern highlands, also up around Arco as well. We did highlight for today the Snake Plain and the Magic Valley because of those gusty northeast winds for today. And also, we need to add the strong winds down around Preston, our end of the Cache Valley. Some pretty strong winds have been continuing overnight, and they're even stronger once you head over into the Utah side of the Cache Valley as well. So how are things looking for today? We do have a band of light showers working its way north and west into the area this morning. That trend will continue through the morning hours. As we go into later on today, another band of showers and thunderstorms will continue to push off through, and this will be expanding in coverage, also intensity, as everything shifts to the northwest for today. We'll see that continuing into this evening and the overnight hours. We start to lose that instability, so there'll be still some showers around. They'll be more isolated in coverage. We might even still see some overnight lightning strikes up in the central mountains as we go through at least the first part of the overnight hours. By the time we get to this time tomorrow morning, just a few sprinkles and light showers lingering across the area. So back to the forecast, looking at the wind gusts for this morning, the strongest wind gusts across the Arco Desert into these lava beds, some of those gusts 40 to 50 miles per hour. In some spots, not necessarily widespread near 50, but definitely some areas above 40 miles per hour. The other area of strongest winds is across the southeast corner, especially coming off the Bear River Range. We've seen gusts 50 to 60 miles an hour, especially as you head closer to the Utah border, and certainly stronger as you head into northern Utah on their side of the Cache Valley. Those winds will continue for the next few hours, especially. It's going to be a tight gradient. You get up north of Preston, there's not going to be a ton of wind. You get south of Preston, those winds really do pick up for this morning. Into this afternoon, we do have some gusty winds continuing. They'll be the strongest early afternoon, still some lingering winds out of the northeast across portions of the Magic Valley near 40 to 45 miles per hour. Those quickly switch to the southeast by mid to late afternoon, and those gusts still winding down. Some gusts 30 to 40, at least early on in the afternoon across the Cache Valley and coming off of the Bear River Range into the Cache Valley for this afternoon. Rainfall totals, most of us will be seeing just a few hundredths across the area. Now, we are going to see some pockets of heavier precipitation, maybe a tenth to a couple of tenths up in the Wood River Valley, the surrounding mountains, also up towards Lone Pine, some of the higher elevations in the South Hills and the Albion Mountains. By far, the heaviest precipitation is going to be over the southeast corner. Many areas seeing a tenth to a quarter of an inch. Some very high probabilities, especially around Bear Lake and the Bear River Range, seeing around a quarter to half an inch of precipitation. we do have the potential for those stronger thunderstorms down there today, and the heavier rainfall is there. And even looking at the probability forecast, there's still a 40 to 50% chance, especially right around Bear Lake, the Bear River Range. We get things to line up correctly, we're talking a half inch or more precipitation. Those are with the storms later on today and tonight. That's when most of that rainfall would occur. Temperatures for today, we're looking at generally low to mid 70s in many of our lower valley locations, mid 60s in the Wood River Valley up towards the Stanley Basin as well. 50s and 60s in the high country of the Central Mountains. Finally seeing some 60s in the afternoon over the southeast corner and up around Island Park as well. Going into tomorrow with the next round of showers and thunderstorms, lighter amounts expected once again, maybe along the bench areas from near Burley up towards Idaho Falls, and then certainly over into the big holes and around Driggs. Some areas could see a tenth to a quarter of an inch, and that fits really well with the probability forecast for tomorrow as well, looking at the potential of seeing certain amounts or exceeding certain amounts. And the same as you head up towards Chalice, the Frank Church, and certainly on up into Limhi County into portions of southwestern Montana. Highs tomorrow, we're going to push mid to upper 70s, pushing into the 80s once you get over into the western end of the Magic Valley and the Treasure Valley. Mid 70s for Salmon and Chalice down in the southeast corner, mid 60s down in the Bear Lake area, near 70 around Swan Valley and Driggs as well. Into Tuesday, we just keep pushing those temperatures up. Some lower 80s popping up from Pocatello westward and also down towards the Utah border near 70 in Stanley. We're starting to see 60s and 70s in the spots that have been kind of cool into this pattern and pretty much most of the spring. Some of these areas, especially the southeast corner, it has been cool overall, but we're starting to see some warmer temperatures, so that's why that snowmelt is just going to keep climbing higher and higher. We're going to push some more mid-80s across the Snake Plain and Magic Valley. Might even push near 90 once you get over into the Treasure Valley, but plenty of 60s and 70s elsewhere. The only place we're probably going to see 50s for highs by midweek are the really, really high peaks and ridge tops up in the Central Mountains, also into western Wyoming. And for Thursday, there are those temperatures continuing as well across the area. So we've definitely got warmer conditions. We've got the rain coming our way. So things are continuing to look rather interesting in terms of the flooding. Our usual spots have not let up with the flooding. The Blackfoot Reservoir above the Blackfoot River above the reservoir, well into minor flood stage. It's not going anywhere. If anything, we'll probably see that trending upwards over the next few days as we go into the middle end of this week and into the first part of next week as well. Going down towards the Bear River along the Wyoming border, we're sitting right at the cusp of the switch between minor flood stage and action stage. It's going to continue to go up with all the snow melt coming in the coming days as well, and pushing well up into minor flood stage as we go towards the end of this week. Down at Marsh Creek around McCammon, we still sitting at action stage, between action and minor flood stage. Still quite a bit of lowland flooding in those areas. Along the Portneuf River at Tyhee, we're sitting right at action stage. That's really not going to change, and again, it probably will go up as we get a little bit of more snowmelt working its way through the entire river system. And at Topaz, we're sitting right at the low end of minor stage, flood stage, and that's going to stay there and gradually climb in the coming days, again, with the warmer temperatures headed our direction. Looking at the Portneuf at Pocatello, you can see a spike yesterday afternoon. That's when we had the heavier rain over town. We pushed up above 10.5 foot for the stage, but quickly went back down. So you can see how these showers and thunderstorms can affect these flood stages, these river levels, on a short-term basis. But you notice the overall trend continues to stay in moderate flood stage now, it looks like, through the next 10 days or so, along at least at the Pocatello gauge on the Portneuf River. We're starting to maybe potentially see a very small potential of heading higher into moderate flood stage and maybe brushing the low end of major flood stage. But again, it's not imminent. It's a small amount, just something we're going to have to keep our eye on as we go through the next several days. A lot of this depends on temperatures and precipitation, especially upstream. Looking at the Big Wood River up at Haley, we'll continue to go back up into minor flood stage over the coming days. It does look like maybe at the end of the 10-day forecast or so, we could push to moderate flood stage. That's not necessarily a huge thing at this point, but something to watch. something that can happen as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on in that part of our viewing area, or forecast area, excuse me. And the Henry's Fork, we've been showing this for several days. It eventually is going to push into action stage. It looks like by the end of the forecast, we may be flirting with minor flood stage as well over the next 5 to 10 days. So certainly quite a bit of active weather our way. With all of this wind, that's going to eventually subside. And the winds, especially down in that Cache Valley area, they've been strong enough, and it's been very warm there overnight. The winds themselves are causing issues, and the wind, if you've got a large vehicle, it can knock you back and forth, but it's also helping to accelerate snowmelt on a very localized basis. More showers and thunderstorms to come. Some heavy rain down in the southeast corner is possible, certainly for today. Have a great Sunday. Have a great Mother's Day, and do stay safe out there, everyone.